As we celebrate our 40th anniversary of Fremont Community Church, we want to take you back to portions of the 25th anniversary video, briefly covering those years that started in 1973. It begins with my dad at his church in Castro Valley.
So after coming to Redwood Chapel as the senior pastor, I challenged our official board there to consider, after we got to a certain growth point, 600 or 700 or so in our church, to now consider starting other churches rather than building just a super church at one point.
One day, out of the clear blue, I get a call from Don Fowler, who at that point was the chairman of the board at Redwood Chapel in Castro Valley, and he said, we're thinking about planting a church in Fremont. We've got, I think he said, we have 8 couples who are interested in possibly being part of that kind of a church plant.
We had started churches before. We started a church, helped start a church in Chicago, and we started a church in Florida. And so it felt very right to be involved.
Just a couple months after FCC started, we heard about this little church meeting in the high school, so we came down from San Ramon, came to this little school with probably about 60 people at that time.
Well, we were at Mission San Jose High School at the C-120 lecture hall. Means you got to bring in all this stuff every week, set everything up. I can remember setting up that A-frame sign on Mission Boulevard so everybody would see this sign that says Fremont Community Church meets here and all that kind of thing. All of the official members, that would be like the charter members at that point, signed that document. And we did that in a very special ceremony because now we were on our own. And now we were finally given the freedom to move ahead on the basis of whatever God was calling us to do.
Well, my recollection is that we had formed this committee to look at alternatives about how we could expand the church, because we were starting to get enough people there that we were a little concerned about space.
Some of the people in the church come to me and say, oh, Pastor, there's this place down Mission Boulevard, 9-10 acres at Kemper, and we think we should go there and make that our church campus.
And there were people in our congregation that thought that would really be a nice piece of property to have.
We got this dinky little congregation. There's this huge property at a prime location. How in the world could we ever do it? You know, the economics, they just aren't there.
And so as we thought about Kimber and knew that it was available, it was just an impossible dream.
The next thing I know, they're up at Kimber walking the acreage.
Like the Hebrews marched around Jericho and claimed the property for us. And there's no doubt about that, in my mind, God heard those prayers. And then we find that DeKalb Ag Research is willing to sell us their property for about $385,000 if it's worth $1 million. Now that's pretty neat. I can't pull off many real estate deals like that. Haven't pulled off many real estate deals. As a matter of fact, there's only been one in my whole life that I've ever pulled off like that.
And it was ours, and it was time to get it ready. Well, the first thing we had to do is clean up this place. It was a chicken farm, and it was just a horrendous mess in every way, inside and out. If we can build into the lives of kids that are going to come and spend more waking hours with us a lot of days than even their parents, what tremendous impact we could have on them and therefore on our community. And we could build into them not only high academics, but the love of Jesus Christ. And so we have made that investment, and we believe it's one of the most significant things that we're about as Fremont Community Church. 1982 brought nearly a decade of transitions. I resigned my position as senior pastor, and Gene Sealander became the senior pastor of FCC from 1983 to 86. Gene was a marvelous preacher who had a passion for evangelism. Then in 1987 to 89, Mike Hurt served as senior pastor. Mike was a gentle shepherd who brought increased unity to the congregation.
And so we had been gone from FCC for 4 years. And during that time, God had been showing us that He wanted us back in the pastorate, mainly by putting that desire in our hearts.
Paul Shell calls me one day, the chairman of the board of elders of Fremont Community Church, and says, "Can I sit down and talk with you?" And he says, "We just lost our pastor. By that time it was Mike Hurt, and we want to know, would you consider coming back?"
I just remember being extremely clear that God was leading us back here, and we were very thankful and very, very happy on that first Sunday back in July in 1990.
Shortly after our return in 1990, we realized how important it was for us to deal with the facility needs we had. We were meeting in a smaller auditorium, and we had to go from 2 services to 3 services, and the implications of all of that. We also realized our need for the gymnasium for the school side and for our youth ministries and all. And so we decided that we would build the pavilion in the last area that needed to be developed on this property as it presently had existed. And so I remember Steve Stevens creating a fireside chat room, and he'd get up and encourage groups. We had groups come in several nights. I don't know, it seemed like 10 different nights. We had people come in, and we'd share that we want to raise money for the first stage and then build that stage, and then we'd raise the money for the second stage and build the second stage, so that by the time we were through, we would have paid for all of the building, and that's exactly what took place. Having come to that significant milestone, we marked it with the Memorial Stones Pyramid, each stone representing a single or a couple or a family who had given above their regular offerings in order that we could be completely debt-free. We were now in a position to move aggressively forward, wanting to represent the different slogans that had come to define us as a congregation. Here's the back of a t-shirt, some coffee cups that identified us as Holy, Holy, Counterculture, Christ's Way, Unity with Diversity, Building a Strong Christian Family. So that's some of the highlights of our 25th anniversary video. Hope you enjoyed them, seeing some of us who look a little different now. A major ministry emphasis in the 1990s and 2000s was called bridge events, programs designed to build bridges to the unchurched in our community. There was everything from soul food, described as a Christian Saturday Night Live, to an evening with the classics, to a concert of praise, and starlight carols. We loved all the generations that were involved. By this time, we'd already started a Friday night service, which was called Refinery, designed especially for the next generation of worshipers. In fact, in 1997, we already had 150 people attending. Then, 1999, we moved it to Sunday night and renamed the service Zion. Zion led the way to establishing the 25th Street Ministry. And as you know, the name comes from Matthew chapter 25, where Jesus talks about meeting the needs of the disadvantaged. In other words, the least of these. This ministry continues mainly in the feeding and clothing of the homeless in our community. In 2002, we went to 2 different services on Sunday mornings. One was called Celebration, for the more boomer generation and beyond. The other was Analog, which had evolved from Zion in the year 2000, for those mainly in their 20s and 30s. The Analog congregation came up with what they called their 3 things. 1, the church exists for the world. We believe we need to return to the task left to us as a church. The church doesn't exist for Christians, but so that the world will know Jesus. Number 2, becoming world conscious. We believe in transforming American Christian consumers into world conscious Jesus followers. And then number 3 of the analog 3 things, you were born for this. We believe each individual has been born for a specific God-given purpose. When we live out this purpose, God is glorified and people who don't know Him are transformed. Another trademark of FCC in the 90s and 2000s has been the expansion of the ministry that we spearheaded starting way back in 1978, now known as City Serve, Faith Communities United in Jesus here in Fremont, Newark, and Union City. We continue to provide significant human and financial resources for City Serve's Pastors Network, Youth Network, Intercessors Network, and of course City Serve's Compassion Network. Even as we are highlighting the wonderful things God has done for us here at FCC, we have been through difficult times as well. In 2005, Sandy Purchase, who had been on our Christian Community Schools staff for 25 years, as an exceptional teacher as well as a key administrator, passed away. Her investment continues to provide great dividends. That same year, the Discovery Center was reestablished at Christian Community Schools, having been initially started in 1995, going through several evolutions as a learning assistance program, and now thrives in our school under the leadership of Principal Stephanie Louie and Director Jody Wilterdink, as our students are given the tools to enable them to overcome specific learning weaknesses. 2007 was another major year of transition here at FCC. I stepped down as senior pastor, recommending to the elders and they to the congregation that Kevin and Pauline Hom become our new lead pastor couple. One of the key leaders during that transition was Glenn Rose, who was chairman of the elder board at the time. Glenn died suddenly a year later, leaving a legacy of profound, faithful service to Jesus here at FCC. And it wasn't long before Pastor Kevin was aggressively leading us to increase our short-term missions efforts. By 1997, 140 FCCers had already gone on short-term mission trips, but Pastor Kevin expanded that to hundreds of our congregation, ministering in Romania, Afghanistan, Uganda, Kenya, Taiwan, Philippines, Spain, Turkey, India, Guatemala, Haiti, South Africa, and on and on. Other important ministries were developed, including Vida Nueva, our Spanish-speaking congregation, Mission for Chinese Families, our Mandarin-speaking congregation in outreach ministry, and the Great Commission outreach, ministering to low-income families in East San Jose in areas where the children and youth are at risk because it is so gang-infested. In the early 2010s, the atrium was reinvented to provide more opportunities to gather in groups for more personal and family interactions, whether children, youth, or adults. In addition, under the direction of Pastor Kevin, the name of our school was changed from Christian Community Schools to Kimber Hills Academy. Also, there was an intentional move to position Kimber Hills as a 21st century school, including significant upgrades in the use of computers for each student. And just last year, Pastor Kevin led us to combine the analog and celebration congregations into one intergenerational worship service on Sunday mornings. And now here we are in 2013, and we find ourselves in another significant transition period as Pastor Kevin is no longer our lead pastor. We thank the Lord for providing Jack and Margie Brandt as our transition lead pastor couple during the search for a new lead pastor. Please be in prayer for our elder couples, Ted Fong, chairman, and his wife Harriet, Elder Doug and Cindy Chun, Elder Gary and Stephanie Louie, Elder Advisor Jack and Margie Brandt, Elder Advisor Ken and Jennifer Peterson, Elder Advisor Benji Craig and Jessica, and there to support them, Sherman and Marty Williams. And also pray for our executive team, Pastor Jack Brandt, Doug Ingebretson, our community pastor. Christine Ingebretson, our women's minister. Matt Bromley, operations pastor. Rich Hong, missions and equipping pastor. Thomas Wedo Stevenson, our student ministries director, and Mario Davila, Vida Nueva pastor. And once again on this anniversary, let's join together and thank God for the thousands of people who have committed their lives to Jesus Christ through children ministries such as Vacation Bible School and Kimber Hills Academy, through youth ministries such as Hume Lake and weekly youth groups, through multiple adult ministries, thousands who have chosen to follow Jesus in these 40 years. I encourage you with these buttons that we wore years ago to remind us of how God did the impossible in providing this property for us, as well as the seeming impossibility that we could move into the pavilion debt-free. That this same God of the impossible is with us today as we move forward with great dreams of what He wants to do in and through us in the next 40 years. Luke 18:27. With God, nothing is impossible. He is faithful.